Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily podcast, where every day I learn more about how technology is transforming our life, work, and even world. But also share a few inspirational tech startup stories along the way. Now, if you have big dreams but put self-imposed limits on those dreams because of how busy you are, well, wait until you hear about today's guest, because her name is Idit Levine, and she was born and raised in Israel, where her grandparents settled after World War II. She played basketball professionally, and juggling that alongside Israel's mandatory military service, and studies in computer science and biology. But then she moved to the East Coast of the US to pursue a career in computer science and worked as a software engineer for several startups and large companies, including Dynamic Ops and EMC Dell. But she then went on to found Solo in 2017 to help organisations meaningfully adopt cloud-native technologies alongside their existing IT investments. And that company has gone on to secure $171.5 million in venture financing to date, tripled its revenue in 2021, and have an impressive client roster, including just about every household name you can think of. So if all that is not a story waiting to be turned into a Netflix show, I don't know what is. But if they do, just remember where you heard the story first. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Nextiva. Gone are the days of jumping from app to app, killing precious time that you could be using to get real business done. Alternatively, with Nextiva One, you can communicate and collaborate with your customers and teams from one single place. Threaded conversations that let you see an entire call and messaging history regardless of communication channels. Seeing the whole conversation in one place actually gives you the whole story of the customer and allows you to provide premium personalised services while connecting with your team. Get your Nextiva One customer and team conversation system set up and running today by simply visiting nextiva.com/techtalkdaily. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to Boston, Massachusetts, where Idit Levine is waiting to share her inspirational tech startup story. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so my name is Idit Levine. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Solo.io. But we honestly, everywhere in the world, including Europe, we have a big team there, as in UK and in Paris and in Slovakia and in Slovenia, like seriously all over the place, Amsterdam and so on. So yeah, no, that's
Wow.
what we, very high level. But we didn't talk about what we do. I can talk about it next.
No problem. Well, before we do, though, I want to take you back in time for a moment, a time before Solo. So can you remember where your passion for tech came from, or the moment that might have put you on the path that you're on today?
So honestly, I was really interested in math and quiz and puzzle. Like that's always something that I always really like as a kid, and also in school, that was my favorite subject. So I always kind of like was staring to that more. So I'm originally from Israel, and I have 3 brothers and sisters, and they all in the tech, including the 2 that are older than me. So it's kind of like was more like I saw what they're doing, and I really like it. So I wasn't like a kid who always in computers. But when I finished, the high school, then basically I started to think about what I want to do. And it was very native to me, first of all, because all my family is doing it. And second of all, because as I said, like I was always more drawn to maths and that kind of question. So yeah, that's basically how I got there. And yeah, and I love it. This is like so cool.
And of course, Israel is known as the startup nation. What is it that they do differently over there? That there is that passion for startups and leading the way?
I think that there is 2 reasons. First of all, is because a lot in Israel, you have to do an army. And when you go into the army, usually, not always, but you find yourself in, if you are interested in taking a computer, and from there it's just like culturally starting a startup, usually around security. But I think that more interesting is that like Israel is a very, very, very small, but very, very crowded, let's call it. I don't know if that's the right way to describe it, place, which means that if you're looking at how many people and how many, area, it's pretty, intense. There is a lot of people, which is mean that a lot of the time you will find yourself in a problem that is stressful. And this is if it's because, the area that we are in generally there, and there is a lot of war. If it's because, there is a lot of people in very small areas. So you always, there's problem and you need to be creative how to solve that. And also this is the way of the Israelis. This is how we're living, right? They're not most, a lot of them will saying a lot. I don't know if you really mean it in the beginning. So we somehow need to make stuff work. And I feel that when work under pressure, it's kind of like a muscle that you need to, get better and better. It's like a muscle, right? So it's like, like it's training a lot to get a better basketball, shooter. One of the thing that Israel is always doing is they're under pressure and they need to act under pressure. And when you're doing this a lot, it's just honestly becoming something that it's not that big deal. We're doing it all the time. There's no something special. And therefore you can think really, really well when you're under pressure. So I think that, if you understand that, and now as a founder, I can tell you, the area of the startup world is more like a roller coaster. There's always problem. There's always something to do. And sometimes you think you make it and sometimes you're not. And being able to focus and to be calm under a very, very stressed situation, it's huge things. And in my opinion, this is what makes Israeli a little bit more robust there, because they're always under pressure. So that's in my opinion, the way I try to explain this. So it's culture, it's everybody doing it. So, you're not afraid to open a startup. And then the second one is, you used to be under pressure. So, it's not that stressful.
And I have to pick you up on a basketball reference you made there, because you will be an inspiration to wannabe startup founders listening all over the world that convince themselves they're too busy to launch a startup. And by that, I mean, can you expand on a time in your life where I think you played basketball professionally and also juggling that alongside Israel's mandatory military service that you mentioned a moment ago, and studies in computer science and biology? It just sounds insane, but can you tell me about that time and what kept you motivated?
Yeah, so actually, eventually when I left basketball, it was because I needed to make a choice. It was too much and I needed to make a choice when I wanted to focus. But, I played basketball since I was, maybe third grade, right? Yeah. I mean, I was always with the ball. It was basically coming home, making homework and going to play for 5 hours and outside with a lot of boys and people that are older than me. So I really, really like it. I'm very competitive. So when I say I really like squeeze and puzzles, honestly, it's going really nicely with the fact that I just really, really competitive. So it's making me challenge and then taking a lot of the I'm getting relaxed by being in competition. So it's actually one of the reasons that I started playing basketball. I love it. This is it's a clever game. It can be so sophisticated of how you're doing. So it's not only sport, which is a lot of fun and healthy. It's also how can you make the nice pass? I can read so I really like that. So I was doing it, most of my life. I was in a special school that has classes that dedicate to basketball players. And I continued that when I was in the army and so on. So that's something that was really, really important to me. And I think gave me so much in my life, mainly because team player, how do you work as a team and going directly to the same direction and so on. I think that's something that helped me a lot right now. And also it was, I get used to being in competition, right? So to me, it's so that was a lot of fun. Then, in Israel, as you said, when you finish high school, you need to go to the army. Lucky us, in Israel, actually, they are identified the people that are extremely good in sport or in music, and they're basically giving them a little bit different service to do. So honestly, I wasn't doing a lot in the army. So I could have still go, to actually play and, work a lot on the continue compete. So that was that. And then, so that's in terms of the army. And then, when I finished the army, so then I needed to choose what I wanted to learn to study. It was clear to me that I'm going to the university. The question was where. And I think that before that, I was already picking up a book and basically teach myself how to program because I was kind of curious, and it was the bubble. So when I finished the high school, the the army, before going to the university, I basically start working in the industry. I teach myself how to program and start working. And that was in the dot boom, kind of like the dot-com boom. So everybody was doing that. And I got quite a lot of money, because it was like the boom, right? You got money on everything, any line of code that you basically wrote. So I was already earning really nice money, which was important because I'm coming from a family that wasn't really, on the high, I needed to pay for my own college. I needed to pay for my own university. So it was actually really, really good for me. So then when I went to the university, it was very native to go to computer science. I was already pretty much strong at this. But the question was, what else am I going to do? Because if I'm learning something that I knew already, I will be pretty bored. So that's why I added biology. So I had a dual degree in computer science and biology. All that time I was still playing, so that's that. And then after that, I basically, I stopped. I needed to make a decision because I couldn't work because I needed to pay for my college and do computer science and biology and play professional. So that's where I basically decided that I have to let go something, and I chose to let go the basketball because it was just clear to me that that's more like long terms track. So yeah, I don't know if it was helpful, but
wow, what a great story. And of course, all that hard work would pay off, and you ended up founding Solo.io back in 2017, which is a tool to help organizations meaningfully adopt cloud-native technologies alongside their existing IT investments. But can you tell me a little bit more about the company and the problems that you solve?
Yeah, so when I started Solo, it was as you said, it was 2017, end of 2017. It was exactly when it was very, very clear that that there is this notion of migrating from monolithic to microservices. So, Docker came and, Kubernetes was there already. So it was really, really kind of like on the edge of when on the orchestration world, which orchestration platform is going to orchestrate your microservices. So that's basically when I started it. So I think back then on the world, there were like, Kubernetes just became, looking like a winner back then, but it was still too early to say. There were Cloud Foundry was actually a very robust platform, and user experience was really good there. There was Docker Swarm from Docker, and there was Mesosphere from Mesosphere actually. And so when I started the company, again, it was clear that the migration is happening. It was clear that people is going to, I thought that people will go only on Kubernetes. So that was kind of like a bet, but it was worthwhile. And the second one, people wanted multi-cluster, multi-cloud. So when I looked at this, I said to myself, okay, here is, try to predict what is the problem that people will have. And the problem that I predict was that if someone is taking something that is a binary, one big binary, cut it to small pieces, somehow we will need to reassemble those pieces together, because to the application, the user actually leveraging the application, they will see it as a one big application. So there will be a lot to do in order to make it look like this. And what it means is that all those microservices pieces will need to communicate to each other. First of all, they need to connect. Second of all, they are connecting on the wire now. So we need to make sure that they, doing it in a very secure way and nothing is coming in between and kind of like pretend that it's the application, but doing something nasty. And then the last one is observability. If you have right now a lot of little pieces, and then from each pieces you have a lot of replica, when the request is coming, you don't really know where it's going because it could basically eat each of them. So when you wanted to get the log, where is the log? You need to get the log for a specific request. So all those problems is the problem that I identify. And I said, okay, that will be the biggest problem once everybody will adopt Kubernetes. And today in Solo, we're actually calling it, we're calling it the first phase of kind of like adopting Kubernetes Cloud Native 1.0. And that's what everybody did. They started, they kind of like adopted it. It's nice. They maybe ran some application there, maybe some lift and shift. Maybe they, scaled a little bit, but not drastically. And that's basically where most of the people started. But what we see right now in the ecosystem, and that's where Solo is playing, is that that's not enough. Now you need, to enable the team to leverage that applications. And, you need to scale to crazy, clouds and scalability that, usually You didn't start when you started with the platform. So that's where, you probably want to do it in a GitOps ways to make sure that if something happening, it's stateless and you immediately can kind of like spin up your infrastructure again. And all of this stuff is basically where Solar is focusing. So we're kind of like bringing application networking. So we're focusing on the networking, but we're doing it in a cloud native way. And what we're calling it is cloud native 2.0, right? Where I think the market is right now. It's the scalable basically and enable of the other teams, if it makes sense.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
And one of the big reasons I asked you to share your story with me today is I think very often we're guilty of celebrating the success at the summit of that mountain and everything you've achieved, but not the climb. And that's where the magic happens. But here we are in 2022. So to set the scene, can you tell me more about how the company has secured, I think I read this before you came on, $171.5 million in venture financing to date, and also tripled revenues last year and expecting 5x to 6x growth this year. It seems like you've been on a phenomenal journey, but can you expand on that?
Yes, I mean, so first of all, let's talk about finance. Let's kind of like separate those.
Yeah.
So, it's the hardest thing for people is to secure the first seed round because you've never done it before. And that's a huge risk already, right? I think that was when it was extremely challenging also for me, specifically based in Boston, but honestly building a company that is more maybe suitable to be in the Silicon Valley, right? More like companies like around the cloud native is usually sitting in headquarter in San Francisco. So I think that was the first time. I also, I started it by myself, so I didn't have a co-founder, and I'm also, a woman. All of this together, I think, was pretty hard to get money, at least here in Boston. And eventually I actually went to investors in San Francisco area and basically took it from the amazing, from a True Venture is amazing firm. So that's where I started. That was when I secured the first, I think it was 3.25 or something like that, $1 million. That's where we started. Once that happened, now it's on you, right? Create a team, make the noise, build some technology that people are excited about, and that's exactly what we did. So we open source immediately our product, we built community around it. It was relatively successful and, got a lot of attention. That immediately I got some prenup from some venture. So one of them was Redpoint, and specifically the amazing Satish, who I really, really like. So it was very easy to take it, even though we didn't need money on that point, right? But we took it because we felt that, we usually need to take when people offer. So we took that, and I think it was around maybe 11 million, or maybe a little bit more. So that's when we kind of like secured that. But at that time, we didn't have customers yet. It was more like noise in the ecosystem, and we work with Docker. I did the Docker keynote, and we partnered with HashiCorp to build their mesh. So we were interact with a lot of good energy in the open source community. But honestly, we didn't have customer by that then. We didn't have a product to sell anyway. And then that's where we started basically build the enterprise product. We started on the Gateway because that's where we thought people would start. And the serious, we didn't need money because we kind of like got quite a lot of customer kind of like ramping up on the platform in that point that honestly, we didn't need to raise money, but then COVID came. And when COVID came, it was a good question what will happen. And, I was kind of like stopping, hiring and see what's going on. And I was surprised to discover that it's actually enhanced like crazy. So again, I don't remember what is the number that they gave you, but just you will know, I think that in 2000, we did as much as, more than, even though it was COVID, we did more than we expected, more than we promised the board. And in 2000, so when I saw that we actually doing more, and I also saw what's coming in 2021, I decided that it would make sense to take some more money to grow. But that was COVID time, and honestly, very not an easy time to get more money. Definitely for a B. So even though we did really, really well, it was really hard for me to raise money in that point. Like a lot of people were interested, but they all was pushed because they weren't sure and they didn't know, right? It was very hard. Of course, you couldn't even meet them face to face in that point, right? It was all in Zoom because it was the heat of COVID. But we did get some treasury. But even before that, my current investor saw all the growth that happening and knew all the details. was very, very excited to basically, and they were very interesting on actually dive into like double down on the company, which is very unique because usually definitely a seed investor, an investor, they're not usually doing it. It's too risky, but they really, really believe in the company. They saw the huge customer that we put out there. It was T-Mobile and Amex and BMW, and huge, huge company by that time, right? So it was clear, and Macquarie and so on. So it was clear that we're doing something special, that it's looking good. And they basically decided to double down. So before I even looked, they actually gave me a term sheet that was really aggressive, good term sheet. And they said, we want to double down. And I was kind of like, I don't know. And then I start looking. And honestly, it was a little bit hard because, as I said to you, Zoom and COVID, it wasn't at that. And in that point, I just make a decision. And I said, look, can I get a better valuation out there? Yes. Is that going to hurt the company? The answer was yes, too. And why was that? Because in that point, we wanted a lot of people. So I was doing a lot of the management. By me kind of like going and look for money, I was the only manager back then. So we basically lost, the company kind of like was, bottleneck by me. So I made a decision and I said, well, can I get better? Probably. Is that going to be the best way of my time right now for the company? No. So I decided to take one for the team. And I told that the investor, I said to them, look, guys, we're going to take one for the team, but we will make, I'm sure that next round we will, compensate for that. And that's exactly what happened. So we took the money, I think it was 20 million or something, more or less, a little bit more. And honestly, that's when we start growing. And so I told you we did over quota for 2020. On 2021, we were supposed to do multiply by 3. And after 2 quarters, we were over multiplied by 3 already.
Wow.
So we basically finished the year in almost multiplied by 7, the growth. So in that point, it was very clear that it's not going to be out to raise money. And honestly, even though we didn't need to, because honestly, our customer, one of our biggest customers, it's a huge customer. They gave us a lot of the money out of the time for 2 years deals. And honestly, we had a lot of money in the bank. So I didn't need to raise. But on the other side, I saw the market and I saw the valuation that happening in the market. And I said to myself, that cannot continue like this. I'm sure it will climb sometime. So what I did is I make a decision to basically take the money basically to be okay. Like it was a lot of people who came pre-num. I wasn't really looking, but I was deciding to take it on the peak. And I was very lucky because we took $135 million on a valuation of $1 billion valuation. And I think few months after, the market just like, zip, and now it's almost impossible to take money. But we didn't even use the 135 that we got. It's still all in the bank because honestly, we still have money, from customers paying for the product. So it's putting us in a very good situation, specifically right now, because right now, as you mentioned, we're growing like crazy, right? So right now, a lot of the reason was to take the money from Series C is to grow, get more leader in the company, and extends us very much. I think when we got the $1 billion valuation, we were 50 people in the company, 52 or 3. Now we are probably close to 180, right? So it was a year ago. So it was very important to bring the right people because honestly, we were always understaffed. So.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, so that's money-wise, how we took it. And yeah, I don't know if you want, I can explain the other.
Yeah, I always joke on this podcast about a 10-year overnight success story, and yours is very much that. And I'm curious for any startup founders listening with their mouth wide open now, thinking, what's the best way around doing this? Can you share any insights around how to scale as a CEO of a startup founder?
So I think that there is a few things that I'm doing differently, and I think that maybe will hurt us, but we'll see. Like there will be people that will push back on this. First of all, I'm not settling at all. Like one of the things that is the most important to me is, I prefer not to have, not to hire versus hiring bad. So just for example, I told you we were right now 180. We got our first HR person to the company. She started on September, right? So like 2 months ago, we were there probably around 120, 130, I don't know, something like that. So what I'm trying to tell you is that I didn't hire because it was extremely important to me to find the right person. And when I found her, I needed to wait for 2 months, and I did because it was extremely important because, the right person. And that's just one, but I mean, that's something that I'm doing constantly. Like I rather wait and get the right person than get the wrong person, because the amount of the damage that it can create is big. And we're not settling in generally. Like if you see the engineering that we work in the company from the get-go, I had not a lot of people wanted to come work for us, as a small startup.
Mm.
And I needed to make a decision between, hire someone that is okay, or or figure out what else to do. And I decided that I can't settle on the on the quality. That's what killed me. So what I did is I hire a lot of young people here from the university around me, because I'm in Boston, so there is quite a lot of good university here. I hire people out of college and basically teach them, because I felt that what more important to me, it's anyway a new space, how quick they can learn than what they know right now. And I think that was one of the smartest things that I made, because it's actually helped me a lot, after, in terms of just surrounded by good people, good stuff happened. Besides that, I think that one of the other things that is extremely important to me is efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
So if you will see how Solo is working, it's very flat organization, and I'm trying to keep it flat as much as I can. There's not a lot of meetings that are not relevant. We're working very, very efficient. And I think that this is a key, because we will never put the resources, like we're being very smart about how where we're putting the resources. And that way, from a very little team, relatively, we're getting a lot of benefit out. So I think that that's the way we're working is very unique. Two more things that I would say is how we're working with our customers is very unique. You're basically partnering with the customers and basically becoming their extension team. Basically, to every customer of us has a Slack channel, and we're joining the team there, and basically we become their extension team. So the relationships are so close that it's not that surprising that our renewal rate is 98.9 and our net retention growth is 135%. It's because we're working so closely with those customers that we're becoming their extension team. And last but not least is the culture in the company. I mean, you hire very, very smart people. If you hire very smart people, you really, really need to listen to them. And I think that that's one of the things that usually people that are very, very smart, they are very, very frustrated usually when they're working on organization. And I can tell you that I was really, really frustrated engineer. And I feel that what, especially in Solo here, is that, we let them speak and we listen to them, even if they are disrespectful, it doesn't matter. We are a family. If they're saying something, we want to listen. And I think this is something that it's so strong in the culture that people are, their voice being aired, and because their voice being aired, they feel that this is their company, and it is their company, right? Each of them have a big equity because it's very important, and therefore, if someone asking a question, you will have the problem of 10 people jumping in instead of no one care, right? And I think that this is huge in general. So the culture is amazing. People love it here. It's like a real family, and we, there's, to me personally, I don't think that they're, like Amazon likes saying that they are obsessed about their customers, and I like saying that I'm obsessed about our employee. And the reason is because if my employee is happy, my customer will be happy too. So, even the HR knows we're always erring to the good of the employee, and we're really trying to just get very good people here, enable them and give them as much as, good salaries, good benefit, culture, and so on. And then just let them kill. So
Absolutely love that, because there's so many businesses make the mistake of rushing in and getting the wrong person, and a bad hire can just destabilize that culture so quickly, and especially in the current hiring market. I love how you've invested in younger people coming out of university, etc. So important and great to hear. And something else I know you've got a bit of advice and tips you might be able to share with us is on how to, if you're a startup founder, how to monetize open source services. Is there any tips or insights you can share around that as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, so I will tell you that much. When we started, we needed to create a brand, and everything went to the open source. The only thing that was important to us is basically give and show credibility. And that's what we did. When we started to have more and more customers, there was the question of, okay, but why should they pay us? Now, I definitely do not want to be a support company. I don't think this is an healthy, and, getting the support from me, tomorrow they will get it from someone else. So it's not a very healthy business. So what I did is I basically tried to figure out how can I enhance. And I think that the stuff that people is usually paying for or willing to pay for is, besides this amazing relationship and, honestly feels part of them and real partnership with customers, is security. So some of our open source security. So, you can bring it on and then you don't need to pay us a dime. But if you are interested in us supplying that, that will cost you, right? Mm-hmm. And then the other one is everything that related, again, so rate limiting, external, all the stuff that related to security and observability. And besides that, everything that related to enabling your team organization. So what called developer portal, or this is something usually that people doesn't want to build by themselves. Usually it's not something on the open source. Yeah, that's not where the open source is focusing on. So that was some part of the stuff that we made, that is the monetization piece. But since then we do way more, right? So everything that related to, if you have one cluster, it's not a problem. But what happens when you have hundreds of clusters and you have those software everywhere? So somehow you need to manage that. So the federation is a piece, for instance, that reads on the closed source and not open source. So it's really, you try to basically put in most of the stuff on open source and try to figure out what is this thing that makes sense still to keep in closed source. And usually it's an enterprise solution, right? It's not we don't want people that, in the open source to pay us money. What we want them is to use it, and this is great. But if you're an enterprise, huge organization, probably you have a different requirement, that's where we're making the money, if it makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100% with you. And we started the podcast today talking about your origin story, what put you on this path, how you achieve your success. But as we come full circle now, I'm going to ask you, what have been the biggest lessons that you've learned along the way in your career in tech? And where do you go from here? What's next for you?
Yeah, so what did I learn? So two things. Number one is I built Solo basically to honestly build a company that I wanted to work in. And as I said, I wasn't an easy engineer to manage. I can tell you that much. I was very frustrated often, mainly because I felt that a lot of the time I knew more than my boss. And I was very frustrated that I need to explain and slow me down. And if I'm anyway the one who know it, why I'm not getting promoted. It was a lot of time that I really didn't understand why I didn't get promoted, right? And I think I did a lot of work internally on myself to understand what is the problem here? Where is the gap? If I am good technically, why am I not getting promoted? And I think once I realized that, that's what made me to kind of fly. So what I try to do in Solo is to try to make the company that I could be successful as. And what does it mean? It's mean companies that recognize how talented the engineers are and listen to him, understand how important it is, give him an environment that's just enabling him and not doing a lot of, BS on, politics. Zero politics, really important to us. Know that, really do, and be one thing that I think Solo is very good at, and I think very united us, is the fact that we align, right? It's very important to align the company on one, and then we all go into the same direction. Versus see in a lot of big companies, there's so many initiatives that it's a little bit overcome. You even competing yourself inside the company. Solo doesn't have that stuff. It's very, we're really good and kind of buy in. And what also I'm doing is if there is someone that is like me, right? And maybe he has some trouble, I'm trying to help him to grow like I grow. And again, for me, it has a lot of blood and scarf to get to where I am. And what I'm trying to do is to take someone that was potentially like I was and basically help understand I understand what he wants. So that's basically I see my job as an enabler in generally. And I think that that's what's special. So as I said, really one team. We really like a one family. We listen to everybody. We care about everybody. We understand that if someone's saying something, doesn't do it because he want to hurt me. Or he doesn't want to do it because he wanted to. It just care. And maybe he's not know how to say it very well. And maybe he's a little bit more aggressive. But it doesn't matter that he's doing it because he want to hurt you. He wanted to, he want us to be successful. He care. And those are the people that I want in the company. Now, honestly, if I prefer people that care and talking maybe not nicely, but then we can fix those problems versus people that are very polite and not saying anything because then the company will go to the wrong direction. So really, if something I'm proud of in Solo, it's great. That, first of all, it's fantastic to enable so many, commercial companies. I mean, I was visiting my brother who live in London, actually. So, so I was in a vacation there in UK, and I was going with my kids, and I basically said, "Oh, look, Domino's Pizza, mommy's customers." And then we continue and say, "Oh, Nationwide, mommy customer." Then we continue, Santander Bank, my customer, right? So I was really like, it was really cool to see Snick, also UK company. So, and the thing is that there is a lot of companies that people that probably using us every day without knowing behind the scene, right? So it's really, really powerful. So that's one thing that I'm very excited about. But I think that the one that I'm excited more is by the company culture that we built. Mm-hmm. And I think that an example is that even though after COVID, there was a lot of people who changes work and left Solo, left other companies and joined different. In Solo, almost no one left, which is very, very unique to this space here. And I asked them, like, why? And they said, we love what you're doing here. We love the people we're doing here. And there's a lot of method that I'm doing even in engineering in order to make sure that they are not bored. Like, for instance, I'm putting them on a project. When I see that they are bored and feeling comfortable, I'm moving them to a different and I'm shuffle. And then what getting in this point is that, number one, because of the shuffling that I'm doing, they're not bored because they're always learning new stuff. Right? There's always new stuff to learn. And the second thing I'm creating, everybody in the team is basically so proof they can do everything. Yeah. So that way, if the customer asking something, everybody can do it. There's no, bottlenecks or limitation and so on. So those part of the stuff that basically really help the culture of Solar. And that's the one that I'm really, really excited about. So, amazing is the team. And honestly, that they are the company, right? I'm nothing in it. And the fact that we are basically, having a blast. So, it's really exciting.
It really is exciting. It's such an incredible, inspiring journey you've been on that I know will resonate with so many people listening all over the world. So I cannot thank you enough for spending your time with me today. But I'm hoping there's something I can do for you here. Now, some of the biggest names in business, VC funding and tech have either been guests on this podcast or listened to it. So if I was to say, is there a person that you'd love to have a private breakfast or lunch with and why? Because he or she might just be listening to this. Let's see if we can put something out there in the universe and see if we can make something happen. But who would you choose and why?
I think probably it's a person that I really want to meet because of a lot of reasons. Probably will never be able to invest in us, mainly because he invests in some of our competition. But it's Ben Horowitz. I read his book. I think it's brilliant. I think there's a lot of stuff that there was very resonant with me. Even personal stuff, like he has a daughter, like a daughter or son on the spectrum, if I remember correctly, and I have a daughter on the spectrum. A lot of other stuff that resonate very, very well for me. I learned from him a lot, and I would love to meet with him, even though I know he cannot make me money, but give him money. But honestly, I don't need money, so it's good. Yeah.
Oh, I absolutely love that one. I'll send that out into the ether. Let's see if we can make something happen. But before I let you go, for anyone listening just wanting to find out more information about Solo, contacting your team, or just finding out more information, what's the best starting point for everything? Where should they go?
So I think 2 places. First of all is the website, which is solo.io, right? So you can go there and learn a lot more. And the second one is, as I said, we have a big Slack community. So we have over 6,000 people there, and including a lot of our customers are there, and all the team is there. So if you will join there, everybody's there. You will see me. You can ping me personally or anybody else. So yeah, that's
awesome. Well, I'll have those links to the show notes so people can find you nice and easily. But I just love your story today. It's one of those things that will resonate with people all over the world. And I love your work ethic there of playing basketball professionally, juggling that alongside the Israeli mandatory military service and studying computer science and biology to launching this company. It's a phenomenal story, something I will remember long after this episode. But thank you so much for sharing it with me today.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Wow, what an amazing story. So I cannot thank Idit enough for coming on, talking about the journey of a startup founder, how to scale as a CEO, hiring in the current market, how to monetize open source services, and that whole story from pro baller to successful startup founder. So much gold in there. And stories like this are why I record this podcast every day. They need to be shared. And I think all too often we do celebrate the person at the top of the summit of the mountain. Hey, look how successful they are. Look how lucky they are, but luck seldom comes into it. These things are always a 10-year overnight success story. And it's those stories, those challenges encountered along the way, that's where the learning happens. That's where the magic happens. And for me, Idit's story was pure gold. And if you've got a similar story out there that you'd like to sit down and share with me, please email me now, techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, just @Neil C. Hughes, and my website is techblogwriter.co.uk. So I'm going to go sit down, put on a good tune and reflect on Idit's inspirational story, and also prepare for another great guest tomorrow. So thanks for listening as always, and until next time, don't be a stranger.